Howdy.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Good.
Good.
I don't know if we have much to talk about this week. There hasn't really been any news.
No, nothing's really happened.
Nothing at all.
We should pack up and go.
Just leave. There's nothing happening.
There's no episode.
Not like the Republicans just stormed the chamber of the Democrats. That definitely didn't happen.
No.
All right, cool. Well, before we get into any of that and unpacking kind of the weekly news and items that are happening, beer of the week, what are we working with here?
Very
I'm excited about this, actually.
There's a great pun here.
Oh, another pun. Well, that wasn't a pun.
Red's Peach Ale in honor of impeachment.
That was good. That was actually good. I'm not going to lie. I was lost. I was banking on the Reds being the pun.
Is it a twist off? I don't know. It was.
So, okay. Red's Peach Ale. Beer with natural flavors and caramel color. Because the color is definitely what I care about.
I'm not saying it's going to taste good, but we'll see.
I'm actually excited about this.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, that's good.
Tastes like peach.
Tastes like peach. Tastes like impeachment.
That was a good one. Exactly.
That was good. I've actually had a Red's beer before, but I can't
remember. I've had Red's Oak or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So, for those of you who don't know, this is a peachy ale. Tastes like Bud Light flavored with peach.
There we go.
So if you can imagine that. There's Bud Light Lime, Bud Light Lemon Tea.
Sure, yeah.
Now we have Bud Light Peach.
I used to sell a ton of the Bud Light Lime whenever I worked at QT. Like, I mean, there are certain people that just loved that. It was only one or two people, but they came in and bought it like every day.
Singles?
No, the pack of like 8, I think is what it was. It's like the smaller box. I think it had 8 small cans in there or something.
I've never had it.
No, me either.
Okay, that explains it.
No, I usually actually, ironically, don't drink beer that often, to be honest with you. So I'm going to get to try out it.
Can't say the same.
Yeah, so I think in honor of Red's Peach Ale, the biggest news obviously this week is definitely to do with impeachment. There's been a lot of items that have come out for that.
Yes. I almost said most notably was a testimony yesterday.
Yeah.
But I would be wrong if I said that was the biggest development. When a group of 24 Republican congressmen stormed the hearing.
Yeah, that's insane. I still have to read up on that, but I was like, I assumed I read the headline wrong when I was looking into the news earlier today. I was like, there's no way. I was like, this is just totally unjustifiable what they're doing. Like, there's no way you can spin this.
Yes.
They will, but there's no way you should be able to.
So apparently Trump knew about it, that it was going to happen.
Okay.
I'm sure he didn't stop it.
Sure.
So I think with so much developing rapidly every day, it would be useful to provide a timeline.
I agree. So, I've tried as much as I can to try to keep up with all the developments with impeachment, what the backstory was, and it's just, even for me, and I've probably spent, more time than your average person, it's very confusing how many players are involved with this, what the timeline was, unpacking everything. So I definitely think we should unpack it as good as we can from a timeline perspective, kind of going back to the original, what Trump was talking about specifically with Hunter and Joe Biden and that stuff, and then just kind of work our way through till present day.
So it goes back to 2014.
Yeah.
So both Bidens, Hunter and Joe, get responsibility in the Ukraine at the very similar time.
Sure, yeah.
So you just kind of talk about the Obama administration sends Joe over to Ukraine, kind of appoints him to kind of figure out what's going on with corruption in the country.
Yeah, the country was going through a lot of unrest, and I haven't dove deeply into that to know exactly why, but I know that there was a lot of corruption in the government. I know they're having a lot of issues where the Ukrainian people were very upset about the elites being treated with kind of a lenient standard and the average person being more strictly, judged with justice, quote unquote. So there was, and then just the government kind of not being run in a way that the people were, excited about. So there's a lot of corruption, and the United States stepped in under Barack Obama's watch to kind of try to help out with anti-corruption type items, which is why they sent Joe as kind of the point man on that.
And at the same time this is happening, Hunter Biden, in usual fashion as he has throughout his life, gets appointed to the board of this energy company.
Yeah, Burisma, I believe is the name of it.
Making, as we all know,
$50,000 a month supposedly. It might even be more. So from what I heard, it might even go upwards to $80,000, but definitely at least everyone knows $50,000 every single month to be put on one of Ukraine's biggest natural gas companies. He was on the board essentially, and there is pretty much no prior experience that he's had with anything natural gas related that would really warrant his expertise. And I think it's important to provide a little bit of backstory. This company was being investigated for corruption at that time by the Ukrainian government for doing things that just general corruption type items. And so when Hunter got put on the board, it actually raised some questions even back then, before Trump.
And to preface, Hunter Biden has done similar things like this throughout his life. Having jobs that he got that he had no business having.
Exactly.
Because of his last name.
Yeah.
So I believe now that the energy people pretty much said, if his last name wasn't, or Hunter said this.
No, Hunter said it.
He said if my last name wasn't Biden,
he said I probably wouldn't have the job.
I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, he just said that last week, actually. And I think he was, in his way, he thought he was just being honest. He's like, look, I can't do anything about my last name. It's Biden. It is what it is. But yeah, I don't think I would have gotten the position if it wasn't for my last name. But to everyone else who was already skeptical, rightfully so, of why he got the role and how he was making that much money, it almost just seems like a confession at that point. It's like, yeah, no, I willingly put myself in a position I was not qualified for, and I got it because my last name was Biden, and I had a huge payoff. And the implication, of course, is, well, this company that was corrupt and being investigated was trying to use Hunter Biden as a way to get access to Joe Biden, who was spearheading corruption in Ukraine, was kind of the issue.
Yes. And so this is happening at the same time in 2014.
Yeah.
So this is the genesis of everything.
Yeah.
Of all this.
Yay.
And then Joe's job is to...
Yeah, essentially, he is the functioning as, because he's number 2 guy in the United States, so he's functioning as the representative. Obama asked him to spearhead fighting corruption in Ukraine, and kind of, because they didn't want to keep sending aid to Ukraine if it was going to be used for corrupt purposes. So they wanted the right people in place so that when they sent aid, it actually met the needs that the United States wanted to help out with, was the idea.
And there was a corrupt prosecutor.
Yeah, I forget his name. Yeah, there's a corrupt prosecutor that was... So this is where it gets a little fuzzy, but based on my research and what I've seen, this prosecutor was corrupt for not investigating big companies like Burisma to the extent he needed to.
Which is the company Hunter Biden's
on.
Yes.
And proof of this, in my mind, is you can see images of Ukrainian protesters with his face on like a stick, that they're protesting him for corruption. I think the United Nations also all agreed that he was one of the corrupt officials within the Ukrainian government. Our government believed that. So this guy certainly didn't have a lot of credibility for being a impartial, just prosecutor. He didn't have a good reputation, essentially, right?
Right. And so this is 2014. Nothing really comes of this in 2014.
Well, other than I guess to kind of sidestep, so
political ramification wise,
you mean
with just this
the United States, with Joe Biden?
With the events happening.
No, it was reported on at the time. There's actually a really good article. I think it's in Politico. It's called Biden Inc. or something that actually reported on this when it was happening. So it got some brief attention, but nothing major. I mean, there's a reason all of us are just now figuring out about this.
So it kind of sits, and then this year, 2019.
Yeah.
Ukraine gets a new president.
Yeah. Exactly.
Guy who used to be a comedian.
Yeah.
There's some funny videos of him.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen
him. He actually was an actor on a TV show where he played being the president of Ukraine specifically to fight corruption, just as your average day guy that's like, look, I want to fight corruption. So it was pretty crazy he got elected.
So this guy gets elected.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the U.S. had been sending recently military aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
To help them fight off basically Russian insurgents kind of to the east.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So... And again, obviously, there's complications with the Trump administration in Russia.
Sure.
But we're sending this aid. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, quite a bit.
To help them.
Yeah.
They're our allies.
Yeah.
Trump says, I don't know if you're going to get this anymore.
Yeah. So what happened was Joe Biden last year, and you can watch this video, he's talking at I don't know if it's a conference or a panel or something, and he's talking about his foreign policy experience, and he specifically mentions this prosecutor as an example of back in 2014, he told the Ukrainian president at that time, who was someone different, and some officials said, hey, you guys need to fire this guy or I'm going to withhold aid from your country. So in other words, something that looks kind of similar to what Trump's being accused of, if just on the surface level, right? And so what happened was he said, we're going to withhold, and it was a lot more than Trump supposedly withheld this time, actually, but what happened is a couple months later, this prosecutor actually gets fired and replaced with a new prosecutor general. The conflict of interest that really people need to understand, though, is this prosecuting, I forget what they're calling him. It's not an attorney general, prosecuting general or something, whatever they call him, was supposedly investigating the company that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was on. So that's where Trump and his usual self found a weak spot in his mind where he wanted to hone in on.
He caught a whiff.
Yeah, and he really wanted to... What it looks like, and we'll get into more detail, but what it looks like is he was trying to pressure the Ukrainian president to reopen the investigation into that company to see if he could find Hunter Biden in corruption and what Joe Biden did as corrupt as well, so he could have some dirt on his political opponent.
Right. And so the U.S. withholds the aid.
Yeah.
But Congress did not want. Bipartisan objection to this.
Yeah.
withholding the aid.
Even the ambassador to Ukraine was like confused about why it was being withheld.
And nobody knew why, exactly.
Yeah.
Republican senators, they didn't know why.
Yeah.
I think Rand Paul, for some reason, was the only person that agreed with it. Whatever. So, Trump has this phone call.
Yeah.
Which started this all.
July 27th, he had a phone call with the Ukrainian president.
Yeah. And this so alarms the whistleblower.
Yeah.
That he reported it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the transcript you can read online, at least a portion of it. It's a little sketchy why there's only a portion released. I mean, the idea that he gets to pick and choose what is released so that he can frame it the way he wants is another story. But,
which is what Nixon did, by the way.
Yeah.
Nixon released redacted scripts.
You wonder why.
I wonder how that turned out.
And in the call, you don't see Donald Trump bring up the aid. So this is a part where, and we'll get into this more later, Trump never mentions the aid being withheld. The Ukrainians didn't even know the aid was being withheld until, well, officially they're claiming they didn't know it was being withheld until after that phone call with Trump. So in other words, the quid pro quo argument is the weak part of it is what the Trump campaign is saying is like, look, how is this a quid pro quo? How are we telling him to investigate my political opponent in exchange for the aid when they never even knew we withheld the aid in the first place? That's kind of the weak point they're trying to hone in on.
Which doesn't address the fact that he still asked the president of a foreign country to investigate his top political rival. So
that's been my instinct from the beginning is put the aid aside. Put the aid aside. We clearly know there's so many details, and I'm sure we'll miss certain things. But there's one of the guy that testified yesterday. About 3 weeks ago, Bill Taylor, yeah. He released some of his text messages between certain officials that were intermediaries with Donald Trump, the Ukrainian government. There were some back channels that were happening. It's kind of shady what's coming out now. But one of the things we see in those text messages, that's it's factual. This is not up for grabs. Is Bill Taylor said, look, the president of Ukraine is uncomfortable being used as a pawn for domestic election issues within the United States. He wants Ukraine to be taken serious. So it's clear as day that the Ukrainian president thought that the requests to investigate Joe Biden and investigate where the Ukrainian server was were politically motivated. And this is something you actually don't hear anyone doing news on right now. They're all focused on, well, did he withhold the aid? Did he not? And to me, that doesn't matter. You don't have to establish if Trump withheld the aid as a quid pro quo. What we do know is he was asking for dirt on a political opponent, enough so that the Ukrainian president believed that and didn't want to be a part of it. And that, to me, alone is impeachable.
Yes.
Period.
But a Trump administration official said that it was a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Then tried to say that he didn't say it a day later.
Well, is it Mick Mulvaney?
Yeah.
The chief of staff. Yeah, the chief of staff. He said, and that's another thing. That I think it happened last Friday. It's crazy. He said, look, there were, and I could be butchering this, but he said there's 3 conditions. He's like, he tried to make it sound normal. It's like, look, just like Joe Biden essentially withheld aid because there was corruption, we're doing the same thing. We're just withholding aid because there's corruption over there. But he slipped up, and one of the reasons he said that what the corruption was is a question, right? So you can say, well, we're withholding aid because there's corruption, but it's like, what corruption are you specifically talking about? Joe Biden and Obama were talking about corruption that is not allowing the aid to go where it needs to go. It was being allocated somewhere else. The corruption Trump is talking about is corruption in regards to Joe Biden and not investigating that, and something with the Ukrainian server. So
yes,
and
which has been debunked. So there's a theory that Ukraine
break
helped.
That down for me.
There's a theory. One might call it a conspiracy theory that Ukraine somehow influenced fake Democratic votes in the 2016 election because Trump hasn't quite let go of the fact that he lost the popular vote. So if you recall the fake voters, millions of fake voters, illegals voting,
so he's trying to justify
Ukraine fake voters. So that's what Trump wanted to investigate. God. So Trump has this phone call with the president.
Yeah.
And he's basically just pulling everything out of left field. Biden, servers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now we've had Nancy Pelosi, I think last month or earlier this month, launches the impeachment inquiry based on this information. Based on asking a foreign government to investigate your top political rival.
So I guess we should take that step. That's a good point. We didn't really preface that. So what happened was there's a whistleblower who came out that knew about this transcript from firsthand and secondhand information.
Which it seems like several people knew about this as the more
it seems like one had courage enough to do it, but more people knew about it, and we're starting to see more and more gaps filled in. But a whistleblower came out and basically said, look, the president was clearly using his political or his power as a president of the United States to influence a foreign government to interfere with our election process. Like, it's clear as day. And Trump's reaction to this was obviously that we didn't do that. There's no quid pro quo. So let me release the transcript as a way of getting ahead of the impeachment. So he thought that would stop impeachment from happening by releasing that to clear it up. And if anything, it made it worse.
Yeah. And so yesterday, which is overshadowed by the events of today, there's this huge testimony from Bill Taylor. He is the envoy.
He was the new ambassador. That's a whole other thing. He's the new ambassador to Ukraine. He's a current ambassador.
Appointed by Trump.
Trump appointee that he replaced last summer. So it's relatively recent.
And this person, Bill Taylor, has been a lifelong diplomat. 50 years. He served in Vietnam. He's worked for Democrats and Republicans. Pretty nonpartisan.
Exactly.
So he was very alarmed by this. He gave a testimony. He takes very detailed notes.
Kind of similar. They haven't even turned around all the notes, which I can't wait to see.
Basically, saying how alarmed he was by this. And also overshadowed by this is there's actually people dying as a result of this aid being withheld.
Oh, sure.
Fighters. I think 13,000 people died.
Yeah, and he's someone who you can tell he was very disturbed by it because he takes his role very serious, and he didn't like the idea, and he says in a text message in his testimony, essentially, he didn't like the idea that aid was being withheld from people that needed it for political purposes. He straight up says that, So at this point, you have the Ukrainian president who thought that Trump and the Trump administration was pressuring him for political purposes. You have the ambassador to Ukraine that was saying this was happening for political purposes. You have Mick Mulvaney who slipped up and basically said, we're withheld the aid because we wanted the president of Ukraine to investigate these issues that Trump wanted. And so obviously he stepped it back, and I'd highly recommend everyone watch his segment with Chris Wallace on Fox News, because Chris Wallace is one of the few at Fox News that actually does a pretty good job. And Chris roasts him for 10 minutes on this. And it's just clear as day that he's trying to muddy the waters and say, well, I didn't say what I actually said. But at this point, you just have it getting worse and worse for the Trump administration.
And so today, just hours before the filming of this podcast, 24 Republican congressmen, House of Representative members stormed the hearing. And so now you're not talking about Bill Taylor's testimony. I bet you and I don't even know who actually testified today.
No,
because this is what we're talking.
Exactly.
So once again, it looks ridiculous. Think it's
a smokescreen.
It's a smokescreen.
It's a ball
yet again.
Ball and dog situation.
So it's a Hail Mary. So
I need to look into why they're doing this. So I've heard that they think that it's Lindsey Graham says un-American the way this impeachment process is happening, because Adam Schiff and the Democrats are trying to keep it behind closed doors, trying to keep it.
But there's Republican lawmakers in these meetings, these hearings.
Well, exactly, which is why I'm confused. So if I can try to frame it from the Republican perspective, they're saying, hey, we're not getting enough information what's coming out of these witnesses. So since you're the ones leading this, you get to cherry pick what lines you want to leak to the media, and it's framing the narrative in a way that's damaging. It's kind of what I've heard.
So I would say that's not true.
It's not true because of what you just said.
Mark Meadows, who's a congressman from North Carolina, one of Trump's biggest supporters, he's in these meetings.
Exactly.
He's hearing it. And he's basically saying,
this is what's so crazy, though. Yesterday with Bill Taylor's hearing, Mark Meadows was like, nothing new was said here.
Nothing new.
But then he's like, but I can't comment on it because Adam Schiff doesn't want us to talk about stuff. As if, to me, that comes across, I don't have a rebuttal for what was said yesterday. I'm just going to plead, I can't say anything because of Adam Schiff,
If they had a rebuttal, they wouldn't have done what they did today.
Oh, exactly.
And here's the other thing.
Exactly.
So Mitch McConnell, good old Mitch, is pretty much resigned to the fact that this is coming to him now. And the Senate, I didn't know this until I read through it. Chief Justice John Roberts actually presides over
the Senate trial,
So, and he's a good one to do it.
Yeah, he's a good one to do it.
And so the senators just act as jurors, really. So it's a really tedious process.
See, but that's what's frustrating is the Republicans are acting like because of the way this is happening so what's happening at this point is a fact-finding, they're just trying to establish what the facts are by investigating the necessary people, and then they'll decide if they want to impeach them.
Which it is appearing more and more likely that this is going to happen.
After Bill Taylor's testimony, there's no way they don't. If
it's
they
a matter
don't,
of when.
Would blow my mind. So it's a matter of when. I agree. So, but what's weird is the Republicans are trying to say there's due process is required in the impeachment process, a due process. That's the point of what the Senate does. That's why the Chief Justice oversees it, is that's your due process. That's the trial. That's the weigh pros and cons on if he should be removed from office or not.
This is the indictment.
This is the beginning part. So I think what's driving them crazy is what the Republicans do, especially Trump does really, really well, is he screws up the narrative by muddying the waters and just throwing a bunch of crazy stuff out there. So the more information they have to work with, the more they can discredit some of the witnesses, the more they can muddy the waters in terms of what the impeachment is about. But the less they know, it's harder for them to do those things. And so I think that's why they stormed it today, because they just don't have a lot of options at this point.
This is a desperation. But it's not even to the Senate.
Yeah, no.
And here's what, at the end of the day, you need 2/3 to convict.
That's the thing, is it's kind of like, I guess I could be wrong, but there's almost no way he gets removed from office from
even if some Republicans defect.
It has to be, I think, I forgot how many, it has to be 66 or 67 that vote for it. There's 52 Republicans, 46 Democrats, and like 2 independents, something like that.
The independents caucus of the Democrats.
Yeah, so it's Bernie Sanders obviously, he's
and
going to go
Angus
with
King.
That. Yeah, so you need, how many is that? You need like 23 Republicans, 22 Republicans?
Almost half of the Republicans to defect.
Which, I'm not going to say is impossible, but it's like 99% chance not going to happen, because then it's like political suicide for them. Because Trump's approval rating within the Republican Party, like the voters, is huge.
Here's the other thing, though. McConnell and the Senate Republicans are very concerned about protecting their moderates. So they know it's coming. Sure. I don't think McConnell's necessarily worried that he's going to be impeached.
Sure.
But they're worried about protecting their majority in the Senate.
Yeah.
Because if they lose that means they definitely lost the House and the presidency.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah.
We should have full Democratic control.
Which would be big. Yeah, so as of now, where we stand, and this is my position on it so far, is I do think Trump should be impeached and removed from office, because if you don't, you set a precedent where it says any president can reach out to any foreign government for political dirt on their opponent, as long as they try to make a case that there was no quid pro quo. And that, to me personally, the Ukrainian government also obviously knew that the influence of the United States government is massive, and if they don't give the United States government what they want, there's going to be repercussions in some way. That just goes without saying. And one thing we didn't really go into that I've been trying to read it up on is apparently there were 2 channels which the Trump administration was communicating with the Ukrainian government. One was through Bill Taylor, or the ambassador at that time, which was more like the official clean communication. But then there was the back channel with Rudy Giuliani and some other Trump officials, like I forget his name, but there's some other back channels he was working with to do the more shady stuff, is what is coming out more and more.
Which was really, that's what Giuliani was doing.
Yeah, and that's why they're distancing themselves from Giuliani right now. That's why Trump tweeted just a little bit of a tweet. He's like, yeah, he's rough around the edges, but I like him, So he tries to, anytime Trump senses that someone's going to be like expose him for something or be a liability for him, he starts to discredit them slowly by slowly, and then just calls them crazy afterwards.
So we've done a timeline of what has happened. Let's project into the future for a minute.
Sure. Yeah.
So we know, we're very confident the House is going to impeach him.
Yeah, they have to.
Then what? The Senate, we go through this process.
So this is what happens. So what'll happen is the most recent projections is by around Thanksgiving, if not after, just in time to be thankful for everything in your life.
And to argue with your family about this at Thanksgiving.
At Thanksgiving. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
The Democrats will bring articles of impeachment. Whichever ones get a simple majority in the House will then proceed to the Senate, and that's where you start to see the trial unfold, where it's back and forth on why he should or should not be removed from office.
Which is just going to be awful.
Yeah, and this is going to happen during Christmas and New Year's. I mean, it's like the worst timing ever.
So, the Democrats want this wrapped up before 2020 breaks.
They have to. I mean, the earlier the better. If they try to impeach and remove him from office and fail, it leaves a bad taste in a lot of Trump's base, and it just fires them up once again. So they have to get through this pretty quickly.
I would argue they're fired up regardless.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. This further goes to Trump's narrative that everyone is against me. The media is against me. The Democrats. No one's going to work with me. He's not going to lose his base.
Yeah.
Which is why he's not going to get impeached, because Republicans aren't going to defect.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's interesting, he's like now waged this war against the deep state his whole presidency.
Yeah.
And the deep state people are coming out and offering this testimony, this and that. Bill Taylor's one of them.
Yeah.
And this whistleblower who we still don't know who it is.
Yeah.
It's coming out against him like forcefully.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever really existed, but now it's interesting. These people are just kind of coming out of the woodwork, like diplomats you don't really pay much attention to.
Yeah, so
are swinging kind of the fate of our country here.
Yeah. and I kind of get the idea of like the swamp, criticizing the swamp and the deep state. I kind of get aspects of that. It's like people who are comfortable in their corruption, right? There's actually an article done by The Atlantic, I believe, that was talking about Hunter Biden. It says the socially acceptable corruption, the perfectly legal and socially acceptable corruption of Hunter Biden. And so I think that's the element that Trump and them are nailing, or I should say Trump has tapped into with his base, is like there's obvious corruption within, your career diplomats within the government. But then there's also a lot, and the majority, I would argue, are very honest people who are just trying to do things by the book in a way that is beneficial for the country. They're patriots, right? And so like Bill Taylor would be an example of this. But you better believe in the next week or so he's going to get discredited like every day in Fox News and Trump's Twitter.
Well, it's interesting. Twitter. They didn't try to discredit him. They tried to throw this curveball with this thing today. So maybe, like, how do you...
I noticed
it's not like he's Hillary Clinton or someone who's had this public record, but how do you discredit that?
There's always a way, too.
I know there is.
There's always a way. You can just say he served under a Democratic president. That's all you have to say. Honestly, all Trump ever does is, he was a Hillary Clinton fan.
Even though Trump
but let's say Bill Taylor voted for Hillary. That's all he needs. You don't. So this is the thing. You don't need much to muddy waters. You don't need much to redirect. You just don't. If anything, you don't need anything. You just make up a lie. It's really not that hard.
Which he does
all the time. He actually tweeted today something that I thought was interesting. Apparently, he said never Trumpers, like Republicans who are never Trumpers, are more dangerous than the Democrats, and that they're scum of the earth or something like that.
I'm glad you bring up never Trumpers.
Sure.
By the way,
let's go.
Because a never Trumper that ran for president in 2012 named Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee, I should say, from 2012, basically outed himself for having a fake Twitter account.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Which I don't think is a bad thing.
No, I mean, it could have been a bad thing depending on what he tweeted. Yeah, no. But you kind of want to have the usage of Twitter without the bombardment of, if you're like a senator or something, without the bombardment of the media analyzing everything. So I'm sure it was kind of his just fun way of still engaging in that.
And I'm sure probably the majority of them, some of them don't know how to use Twitter.
Sure.
The ones that do probably have fake accounts.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
they're living among us.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Yeah, it was funny. His tweets were all like talking about how he's courage. He was basically giving himself a pat on the back for calling Donald Trump out and being one of the few senators that took stances on stuff. And I'm just like, dude, like that's such bad taste.
Now here's a follow up. Does Mitt Romney, will he vote for impeachment?
So that's a great question. I think that I was going to say when we need 26 Republicans to vote on it, I actually think people in like the state of Utah, I don't know who, I think it's Mike Lee who might be the other senator there. I'm not sure. But
it's going to be Arkansas?
I can't remember. I don't know. But there's the Mormon church is not the biggest fan of Donald Trump in general.
No.
And so the Utah, I believe it's Utah, could be completely wrong on this. But anyway, I would not surprise me if Mitt Romney took a principle stance.
Yeah, he also has enough political capital that I don't think it would really harm him to do that.
Exactly. I was going to say it doesn't. It actually helps him with his base, is what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
Right.
So.
All right, so you got one.
Yeah, one.
Susan Collins, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, she's on the fence.
And now, so Susan Collins, and she's someone that she's up for re-election in 2020.
Yeah.
So she's someone that McConnell's really worried about losing her seat.
I heard that, yeah.
Because if she votes, she's probably someone that they say, hey, vote for this. Do it so you have cred.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so and that's the game people don't realize within politics is you have to, it's not only... You are a party, but you're individuals within a party. You're an individual senator within a party. So you have people like that are way more progressive or way more conservative because that's what their base wants. And you have those who are more moderate. And you need each of those individuals to hold their seats. And so whereas Republican Party might not vote to impeach Trump or remove him from office, or most of the senators might not, you still might need a couple too to save their seat, which is super ironic how that all works out.
Right, and I think that may end up happening and not making a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the Democrats are so much more politically diverse than the Republicans, because the Republicans are now, I think, the party of Trump.
Yeah. In large part, yeah.
Right, so they've certainly fallen in line.
Yeah.
McConnell's trying to hold them in order in a sense.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be just, if you're an observer of politics, to kind of watch how McConnell manipulates this.
Yeah. I'm excited in a dreadful sense, because honestly, I would prefer Trump just get voted out of office. That's what I would prefer, depending on who the Democratic nominee is.
Which is so soon, too. Yeah. I mean, this is a year away.
Yeah.
But what do you do? So that's the moral and political argument. We don't necessarily have to discuss that because it's already been decided.
Sure.
Because they're going through this route. So let's do this. If Trump doesn't get impeached, he gets acquitted.
Sure.
Then what happens? He's more emboldened, certainly.
So the problem is you have, I forget his name, it's like, either a guy from Ukraine, not Ukraine, California, it's Al Green, or he's like in the House of Representatives.
I
can't remember his name. I can't remember his name, but
there's
a clip of him that Donald Trump plays over and over that basically says, I'm afraid if we don't impeach and remove this president, he'll win re-election. So the argument is, from Trump's side, is, they can't beat me, so they're going to try to underhanded cut me off and impeach me and remove me from office because they're afraid I'm going to get reelected. So you're going to hear that a lot next year. If he doesn't get removed, you're going to hear
him. Which he probably won't.
Yeah, which he probably won't. He's going to use that, and it's going to be very effective because it's going to resonate with a lot of people. And the Democrats don't have a talking point about it because them saying we did this based on principle doesn't fire up a large base as much as Trump saying they did this because they can't beat me and they're trying to find underhanded ways to. So to me, it's going to politically cost the Democrats more than it will politically cost Trump. But, I mean, I guess you have to wait to see.
You know, it would be very interesting. So, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Kamala Harris, they will be involved in this.
Oh, yeah, big time.
They will be the jurors.
Ooh. So it gives them...
They're going to have votes.
That's crazy. Do they do it like the Brett Kavanaugh appointment where you actually give each person 5 minutes to ask questions? I don't think the senators ask questions. They just listen.
No, they're jurors.
They're jurors. They're jurors. They don't ask questions, Right, so it's going to be really frustrating for them because a lot of them like to hold forth. Oh, yeah.
They're not going to be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, like I said earlier, I'm talking about Mitch McConnell too much.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested to see how he
plays it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know by February. I think that's when everything's going to be wrapped up. You know, by the end of November, we'll see the House vote on articles of impeachment, in my opinion, right around there. It'll go to the Senate. That'll take a month or two, so we'll be wrapped up by the end of January or February. So
great.
It's crazy stuff, man. Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't have to be complicated. To me, if you don't know anything about impeachment, this whole process and what it is, if a president of the United States asks a foreign president to investigate a political enemy or a political, rival, full stop at that point. That's full stop. Like, that needs something to be said about that. And if you don't impeach him, you're saying that this is something any president can do in the future. And so to me, it's just a mess. It's a straight up mess. And it sucks the timing that it unfolded with, but, you kind of got to go for it whenever you see something like that if you're the Democrats, unfortunately.
Right. Which is, I think, that's obviously the calculation they made.
Yeah.
Or Nancy Pelosi made.
Hopefully they'll move forward with it, though. If she backtracks and says they're not going to go, which I see as almost a 0% chance of happening, I mean, you lose all credibility at that point, honestly.
So how about this? In some alternate universe,
sure.
What if he does get impeached? What if 26 Republicans defect?
Then the Republicans lose politically for the next decade.
You think?
Yeah, Republicans will be beyond angered. The Republican base will basically hold their Republican senators accountable by not coming out to vote as much as they did, because they love Trump. I mean, that's the thing. That's where the tension lies.
Even if it's presidential nominee Mike Pence?
Nah, he's not going anywhere, dude. There's no way he'd ever win. No one's enthusiastic about Mike Pence.
That's true.
You fall asleep listening to him talk. He's so boring.
Yeah.
He's the opposite of Trump. He's just, I don't mean that as a compliment or a knock. It's just he's very boring, and Trump's more animated and lively whenever
Probably
he's
why
talking.
I picked him.
Yeah, make him feel good.
That was not it.
But yeah, I don't really have much more on impeachment, really. That was just the biggest news this week. I feel like every day something else was breaking out about that. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to unfold.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, other than that, the other items that I think unfolded this week were just, it was interesting to see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorse Bernie Sanders. That was the rally was the biggest one of the year, actually, for Democratic. It was like 26,000 people in New York.
Yes, also, I saw this picture on Facebook. I don't know if this is fake news.
Sure.
But the picture's looking out of the crowd in Queens.
Yeah.
It's a very diverse area.
Yeah.
It's mostly white people.
Is it really?
Yes.
My gut is telling me that that's probably not real.
So I was like, ooh, is this real?
That's
it's interesting, the diversity. Yeah, I don't know how big a boost that is for Bernie necessarily.
It's not probably going to be much of a boost. It is a boost in the sense that it's surprising to some people she didn't endorse Elizabeth Warren. So in that sense, it's interesting. But most of her fans are Bernie Sanders fans. There's a lot of overlay there, so I don't think it'll boost him much. There was a poll that came out which had Bernie higher, but I don't think it'll boost him that much.
I do think there's something to say, like Bernie basically takes 2 weeks off the campaign trail,
Sure.
does a debate, has a rally, and tracks a large amount of people just off the couch.
And no one really reports on it, which is what's annoying. There weren't any made news outlets that really did any reporting on it the day of. I literally looked, because I was watching some of it live, and I literally looked, and no one was reporting on it.
Right. So it's just like, oh,
if it was Joe Biden, dude, everyone would be on top of that.
Trump.
Or Trump.
Trump has these rallies and CNN scrambles to cover it.
It's weird. There is a weird element where both sides of the aisle, Democrat or Republican, are afraid of like a Bernie Sanders type person, and it's weird how much.
Doesn't that say something though?
Yeah, which is I actually believe that a lot of what people think about Trump, him being an outsider, standing up for the working man, him being kind of challenging the status quo, draining the swamp, is actually Bernie Sanders. I actually think if you look at most of the issues, Bernie Sanders encapsulates that much more. He just doesn't, for some reason, come across that way to a lot of Republicans. It's weird.
He doesn't feel... I don't feel like there's a leadership.
Yeah.
A presidential leadership. In a sense. This is the way I felt in 2016.
Yeah.
Where I worked for Hillary Clinton, but I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's a hypocrite right there.
Yep, that's me. That's why I'm now doing podcasts and not working
there we
politics
go. No
anymore.
one takes you seriously anymore.
Yeah. So... there's an element of Bernie that I don't know if there's a crisis, who's going to lead me? Yeah. And obviously I felt like Hillary Clinton could make strong, tough decisions.
Sure.
I feel like Bernie's so domestic focused and so...
oh, from like a...
right. It's like...
yeah, but...
is this someone... how representative would he be of the United States on the...
global scale?
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, what crisis has happened in the last 6 years that needed someone to step up in the way you're talking about that you think he would not be able to?
Right. So besides Donald Trump, nothing.
Yeah.
It's something intangible.
Yeah.
You can't measure this.
Yeah.
It's just a
his
feeling I've had
specialty
about
is
him.
definitely the United States politics and domestic issues within the country. So I'd say I kind of get the feeling. I see where you're coming from in a sense, but I don't know. I haven't looked enough into my foreign policy type of positions or stances to have really a pro or con about any candidate, really. I mean, it's not clear in my mind. So you just don't hear him talk about foreign related issues very much. So that's for sure.
Right. It doesn't play to his base. It's not his specialty.
He
doesn't need it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know, other than impeachment and the endorsement and polls coming out, and obviously Democratic debate we talked about a couple of weeks ago. There wasn't a lot in the news this week that really stuck out to me that
it's the impeachment stuff's wrapping up.
Yeah.
Not wrapping up,
but
ramping up the cycle, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So next week's Halloween. Next Thursday's Halloween.
Sure.
The Tuesday after that.
Sure.
Are the Charlotte local elections.
Yeah, I definitely want to cover all of that.
There's a sales tax that's up.
Okay.
That's a point of contention among people.
What exactly is it?
So we're going to have to do some more research into this.
Okay, I was going to say, because I'm speaking out.
And then there's a mayoral election. It's not really contested.
I was going to say, who's running against her?
No one. Which is why I want to talk about that.
Ooh, exciting. Who's going to win?
Right. Not who's going to win, but what it means when it's controlled, when a city's controlled by one party, which is about what's going to happen in the sales tax and stuff
Charlotte
like that.
is definitely Democrat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about Vi Lyles. This is her first term. I never really know how to gauge if a mayor's doing really well, not well, what they're doing.
So the mayor of Charlotte has really little power.
Okay.
Other than ribbon cutting, so to speak, and being
that's a big
an
deal.
economic face. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
I definitely next week I'll do some research on the kind of the Charlotte issues. I'd like to do a segment on that for sure. Just kind of breaking down kind of some local issues, because I think it's easy to always get wrapped up in what's happening on a national level, but honestly, where you're probably going to have your most impact is on more of a local level. So that's really more interesting in some ways.
Which is always ironic because nobody knows that
nobody knows anything. Even me.
Right.
Like, I don't know a lot.
I only know it because I worked in it and I kind of keep up with these people. And
yeah.
You have to read the Charlotte Observer and then you have to subscribe to that.
Yeah.
So it's a whole situation, but it's funny the impeachment thing's wrapping up so much of the news.
Yeah,
that doesn't affect your day-to-day life.
It doesn't.
Even if Trump gets impeached,
it doesn't really matter. Like, I still got to pay my bills.
Right.
It's weird.
Which is why I don't think it's necessarily going to resonate with people.
Yeah, it won't. I mean, they've done polling on it, and they keep trying to say the majority of Americans support impeaching Trump, but I'm kind of like,
they might support it, but they might not care enough. That it swings.
Yeah. But if you rank issues, healthcare, immigration, gun control, like impeachment of Donald Trump, and throw that in there, which one of those issues are going to be the top? It's not
impeachment's at the bottom.
Yeah, unless you're just a very select group within the Democratic base, because then they're going to act like impeaching him is the most important thing.
So just something, it's going to be interesting to see what issue defines the 2020 presidential election when it comes down to our nominee.
If it's Joe Biden, it's just going to be getting rid of Trump. He will lose.
Right.
To me, Joe Biden will lose. If he gets the nomination, I can't believe they think he will beat Trump.
I think most people would disagree with that take.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's no way to me that Joe Biden has a passionate base. There's no way he's going to be able to attack the amount of muddying the waters and attacks that Trump is just known to do. And there's no there's no solutions he's specifically speaking about that resonates with people. And the opposite is true.
Other than not being Donald Trump.
Yeah, which is, we've tried, they literally tried that exact same thing in 2016 with Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
I'm not Trump.
And now here we are on a podcast talking about
Wouldn't
President
even
Trump
be here. Yeah.
being impeached. We wouldn't be here.
It was weird. I watched, and I guess we can kind of end on this because I don't really have much more to say, but I was watching just reruns of, I don't know why, it was like midnight, but I was watching reruns of the Republican debate in 2015. Is that what you do
in your, where did you even find that?
Yeah, it was like, I was watching when Marco Rubio repeated himself like 4 times on the debate stage and had his talking points, and Governor Christie kind of nailed him on it. And then I watched Ted Cruz and Donald Trump go back and back on his birth issue of
Lion Ted
in Canada and Lion Ted. So it was just kind of like, how did we get to where we're at? I was just trying to get like, and it was just kind of just late night eating cereal, watching YouTube video type situation. But it was weird. Yeah, it's just weird to know now what I know with him being the president, what's all unfolded. And back then, it's like
it's weird to go back and watch it.
It's weird. It's weird, especially like you watch Hillary Clinton and Bernie. That's another weird one to watch them.
I know,
but yeah, I don't really have much more to say. Do you?
I feel worse about the state of our country, so I
there we
can
go.
Wrap up on that.
There we go. That's a very positive,
very pessimistic about the future.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think people tend to, in some ways, get too much encapsulated within politics because honestly, you gotta take care of your family, do your budget, work your job, pay your bills. There's a lot of things you got to do. Whoever's the party that's in power,
right?
So focusing on those tends to be more productive. But at the same time, it really matters what policies form the country. You know, it really matters what our reputation is on a global scale. It really matters what healthcare system we have. And unless you plan on living a perfect life with never having any issues, regardless of who the government is or who's in power, then I would suggest trying to be informed about it. So,
which is why you should listen to this podcast.
Yeah, the best source.
Yes.
Never say anything biased.
The
Everything
AA meeting.
is unbiased. The AA meeting.
We are unbiased.
How can you flip AA meeting? Can you flip something into unbiased in there?
No.
Impartial? Is there something there? No, there's nothing there. No, there's nothing there.
AA meeting. No,
I don't think
got
so.
Nothing.
We'll think about
Can't
it.
Come up, you know how long it took me to come up with this pun? This is like 2 days.
It was good though. I liked it. The impeachment ale.
Yep.
The impeachment trial. The impeachment trail. I don't know.
Red's peach ale.
We didn't even finish one beer. That's pretty lame. You're just gonna chug it. That works. There we go. You finished. You win.
Wrap it up.
Cool. I'm done.